Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And today, we're going to recap our MagicCon experience with tech cards from the largest Commander convention. That's unsourced. I'm just going to declare it the largest Commander convention. I think that's actually accurate, but don't quote me on that. Join with me, is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have some good stories from Vegas, so this should be fun.
Brewer's Kitchen, who kept me all night breaking Kodama. Uh, have you broken Kodama further?
Yes, but not surprisingly. It's just, it combos with everything, turns out. Huh.
Budget Commander Tomer, you had a rough time at the con. You were jet lagged, you lost your voice, you had the sniffles all weekend, and now you got con crud. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm recovering. My voice is like pretty much back, but I have a very runny nose and a little bit of a cough. So that's that. I'll be better
In
soon.
true Crim fashion, we've already lost Crim, and the con the con is over. We've lost Crim still. So his father's here, me, the con father, and I'm recovering from Vegas. It was a rough one. Once the con ended, all my energy just like fell away. All the hype and adrenaline fell off. I'm like, oh, I'm actually very tired. I haven't eaten or slept in like 4 days. It's great. So new tech cards from the largest Commander convention. But before we get into that, today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. You may have noticed all of our sick sleeves, playmats, and deck boxes while at the con, all from ultimateguard.com. And also Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing, and their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order's processed. Get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors. And it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. So last week, we talked about the best and worst mechanics in Commander while we were in Vegas. Top comment, Mr. Malorian. They say it's the full crew, but where is the plant? Did you bring the plant?
That's a good question,
Did you
Tomer.
declare
Where
it on
is the
customs?
plant?
Are you importing plants agriculture?
The plant's on vacation, all right? I can't say anymore. It's on a big farm upstate, okay? So, relaxing, getting a lot of sunshine.
We sent it to upstate New York with Uncle Seth. We don't know what
Yeah,
happened.
I'll just have to take care of it.
It'll be fine.
Kind of shocking that the comment wasn't about us forgetting about Eminence. That's probably the worst mechanic in Commander. That's just like
Oh yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh,
We got
mechanic.
stickers, and that's all
My
that
changeling
matters,
deck
right?
says no. My changeling deck says it's fine.
All right. So tech cards from the largest Commander convention. Before we get into them, just a general vibe check on the meta game. So a couple disclaimers, right? It is the largest Commander convention, if not a very large one. But there are asterisks, right? Because we go there to meet fans, and we play fans. So they may be corrupted by your influence, right? So it may not be a generic, as generic as you want, but we also play with a lot of like casual fans, like they only listen to us once in a while, or sometimes our pod is not all full of fans, right? It's just random outside people. So it still is an interesting data point. But my favorite part of going to the con is testing our meta against the general meta, right? Because the YouTube comments are always like, well, you guys have an ingrown meta, everyone's throwing it for Richard, like blah, 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 right? So this is the chance to see if Richard can get away with it in the general con meta and what it looks like. And my first impression is that this year in particular, you could see a lot of our influence. In previous years, it looked kind of like a normal meta. But this year, I saw so many glacial chasms. I saw so many bounce lands. So there are some like hallmark signatures of our meta that have crept non-ironically into the general meta. And this was the first year that I really felt it, as opposed to previous years where it's like, yeah, people are just doing their own things. Like, what did you guys think of the general meta?
Oh yeah, it was way more it reminded me of Commander Clash from like a year ago or 6 months ago, like before we did the house bannings, the Field of Dead and Glacial Chasm. A lot of those cards, a lot of believers in the fog meta. I was surprised how many people were like on board for fogs. I kind of had a hint of it from day one. When we first walked into the con, I met someone who was shopping and they were trying to buy Glacial Chasm, but apparently Glacial Chasm was sold out from all the vendors they had been to, and I was like, oh man, that's gotta partly be Richard's fault. But yeah, it felt very Commander Clash influence with the land meta and the fog meta in specific.
Yeah, I gotta say, people were not, so they got the Glacier Chasms, but they're not one step further and have answers for it. So one game I just had a Glacier Chasm, and the plan was mill them out.
Wait, Phil, were you playing house band cards?
Oh, I have no
Glacial
shame in
Chasm
my
on our
favorite
bands?
bananas. No shame, baby.
I was fully
Right
prepared
on.
for the Glacial Chasm. Each time there was one, I was like, thank you. I finally have a chance to bring out my sick tech against this. Because like my home games are very much there's a very common land deck that I play against all the time. It has the Glacial Chasm, it has the Field of Dead, it has Vesuvas and all the tutors and blah 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 blah. So like my decks are ready for it, like they're ready for this shenanigans.
What's your tech for stopping the Glacial Chasm, Tomer? What's your number one go-to?
Well, it's one of my secret tech that I'm going to be talking about later.
Oh, well, we're gonna get to that later. I see.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of Glacial Chasm, let's talk about overrepresented cards. So cards we did not expect to see. And my choice was actually Glacial Chasm. I think I saw 3 or 4 Glacial Chasms this weekend. I played 13 games, right? And I saw 3 or 4. Every single time I killed the Glacial Chasm player because I know how gross it is. And sometimes I felt really bad about it. But a lot of Glacial Chasms, and surprisingly, there were enough answers to scrape it together, right? Because one game, someone had a strip mine, and I made them strip mine the Glacial Chasm player because I'm like, if you don't strip mine them, this 40 damage is going to your face, right? So if you strip mine them, the 40 damage will go at them. So, that was kind of forced out. And then I had insult to injury, plus an Arabella activation, another Glacial Chasm. But trust me, we know the Glacial Chasm meta, especially in a lands deck. Like, it is perpetual fog forever. So you need to remove them before they recur for the 100th time. So the only thing is, like, we've been playing the Glacial Chasm meta for like an entire season of Clash, right? So you're not going to do Glacial Chasm meta better than us. So we know the tech cards, and I'm curious what Tomer's tech card is, but we'll save that for later.
Richard, are you an insult to injury believer now? Because I remember I was very high on this card for a long time because I had to run it. I think it's just versatile, right? Like
it's beautiful. The double damage,
the double damage itself is usually like, I'm happy to just get double
enough,
damage
right?
for 3 mana.
Plus the damage prevention clause, like it is absolutely necessary for the fog meta. It also beats fogs, right? And one rings and stuff like that. So like that's why we need insult to injury.
How about the front side though? Do you kill stuff with it? With the injury?
It's the backside. The aftermath side is deal 2 to a player,
oh,
that's 2 to a creature, which is double to 4.
That card doesn't matter.
Awkward.
Like if it wasn't even on the card itself, I don't think it would even affect my rating of the card, honestly.
One word of warning for the Glacial Chasm players. I had a game where someone tutored up their Glacial Chasm with the Expedition map, but then decided not to play it because they wanted to play other lands. And they went like 2 or 3 turns where the whole table knew they had Glacial Chasm. Everyone knew we couldn't answer Glacial Chasm. So they just got like beaten down and killed before they ever played it, even though they had the option. So I think Glacial Chasm, you got to be a little sneaky with it, right? Don't just like expedition it, map it into your hand on turn 3 and be like, I'm going to play this on turn 6 because it's going to go badly for you.
Just crop rotation it in like a gamer. That's a real tech.
All right. Seth, what was an overrepresented card that you saw at the meta?
So I actually have a group of cards because this blew me away. And usually when I go to Command Fest, I see all these old timers that are playing all their old timey decks. This Commander Clash was very different. I met so many new players who had started like from the pandemic era forward, I would say, like in the last 3 or 4 years. And there was a ton of Lord of the Ring commanders. I played against more Lord of the Ring commanders than anything else. I think I got in 12 pods at the Command Fest, and I had 2 pods that were all universes beyond. One was
Wow.
all Lord of the Rings, all with different commanders, and another one was 3 Lord of the Rings with 1 Fallout commander. And then there were other Lord of the Rings decks scattered in. So I was just blown away at, like, even 2 years later, how popular these commanders are. It seems like everyone has a Lord of the Rings deck, and it wasn't like everyone was playing Sam and Frodo from the Puricons or Sauron. I was seeing like Tom Bombadils, I was seeing Aragon, I saw the Arwen in Aragorn Wed, which was from one of the starter kits or something, and that popped off. So I was just absolutely blown away by how many people were playing Lord of the Rings and how many different Lord of the Rings commanders people were playing.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
I have the same
one of the most
best-selling set
experience
of all
with Doctor
time for a
Who.
reason.
It's the best setting, best-selling set of all
But
time.
I'm used-
Makes sense.
I'm used to Commander being like, the hot new thing comes along and you build a deck, but then the new hot new thing comes along and you build that deck. So I was surprised that like 2 years after release, it was still the biggest thing going was the Lord of the Rings set.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see after
it's-
Marvel.
It's
So,
going to be
I
Marvel
have-
next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry to skip this line, but so I have the same experience, but with Doctor Who Legends or cards even. Like I've played, I don't know how many games I've played, but I noticed like almost every pod had like some form of Doctor Who card in there. And people like dedicated Doctor Who decks, sometimes just a card sprinkled in there. I didn't expect it to be this popular, but then again,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen Doctor Who, so I guess
that's
it's cool.
that's reverse sales data. Like,
Well,
so Doctor Who is interesting because I think it's the partner mechanic that really makes it, right? Like there's almost a doctor and partner combination for every color and like everything you want to do. So like back in the old days, we would use the old partners to kind of assemble our colors to go on theme with their deck. So I think Doctor Who is the new version of that. So that's kind of interesting. I want to see the all Doctor Who deck though. I didn't see that one at the con.
I saw also
I
like
saw
the
you
14th
too, I
Doctor
think.
and like Clara or something for 5 colors. I think I played against 2 Doctor Who decks actually, which is a lot, I think, for one set.
I will say though,
I played against 2 dedicated. The other ones were just sprinkled in.
out of all my pods and out of all the pods I spectated, which is a lot, I didn't see very many duplicate commanders. Like almost every commander was brand new. The one exception was Arabella, which is I was playing it. That's the new Duskmourn doll. Like everyone was like it was like an Arabella meta. I saw at least 4 or 5, including myself. But then every other commander, one ofs. Every single time I had to read the commander, I'm like, what is this from? March of the Machine commander? Like, what is this? Like, some random Doctor Who thing, random Lord of the Rings. So it was very diverse. No duplicates, except Arabella. Arabella, hands down, the most popular Duskmourn commander, apparently. I didn't even know that when I built my deck.
I played against
I got
Arabella
dumpstered by it.
twice. Yeah, it was Richard and I think we played against the same person, Richard, I think. So
Oh, wait, I played
against
twice,
you one
actually.
game, and then I played against other Arabella that we both played against. So that's 2. The most popular for me was actually Bloomburrow. I saw a lot of Bloomburrow commanders, but no repeats. Like I saw a Squirrel one, I saw a Rabbit one, and I saw Mabel. Did I see another one? I saw a Frog. I saw a Frog one, Salty Frogs. So yeah, there's a lot of Bloomburrow, but no repeats.
I'm curious because it was very diverse for me too. I'm curious if that's a content creator thing or if that's everyone's experience. Because I always wonder, like, do people just break out their spiciest decks when they play me? Because they know I like brews and stuff. So I'm seeing like their spiciest decks and then they're just crushing people with a Troxer or whatever every other match. So I'm very curious if you were at the con, because I also thought I played maybe 1 repeat commander the entire weekend. So how diverse was it for the rest of you that are just playing in large? Like, because if it's actually like that for everyone, that's a pretty awesome place for a commander to be, right?
Yeah.
It was
Wasn't
definitely
even just-
all fans. Like I played against one person who didn't know in my pod who didn't know who I was. That was it. Everybody else wanted to like play with me basically.
It wasn't just diverse commander-wise, but even archetype-wise. I've seen so many super unique decks. And what I'm hearing from you guys, it seems like if we combine all our games, it's still unique. I guess except for Arabella, which is the only one I've seen twice. And Richard plays it as well. Otherwise, it was just crazy decks, crazy concept, super diverse, and super interesting.
Power level.
what was the power level that you guys saw? Was it roughly Commander Clash power level? Was it higher or was it lower? Because we always hear about the mythical solemn turn 4 tap out, you die. Temple lost, you fall over. I felt it was basically Commander Clash. Like, yeah, there was the odd game here or there where like someone just like totally stomped with something or other, right? But in general, I felt the power level was as expected. When we said 7, it looked like a 7. The 7 today is much stronger than a 7 2 years ago, but I felt Commander Clash power was like on par. What was your experience?
I think the 99s were very like on par with everybody. I do think that like you said, 7s are stronger now than they were before, just because if you're picking a newer commander, like one that's built in the last 3 years, I think it's just stronger, like way stronger than something like 5 years ago, for example, 6 years ago. So yeah, like I thought a lot of the commanders were very scary. But like power wise, I guess it's not even a problem anymore. But power wise, like usually the indicator of like, oh, this is a higher power level than what I'm bringing is like Jewel Lotus and Mana Crypt and stuff. Like when people are going like turn 1 Mana Crypt or turn 1 Jewel Lotus, drop a 4-drop commander on turn 1 or something like that. Usually I'm like, oh, okay, so we're playing higher power level than I expected or something like that, higher than 7. But with the bans, I don't know, like everything kind of got mushed together, like I don't want to rock the boat too much. I don't want to get death or anything, but like I think the bands were really good. Like it kind of just picks a lot of that variance right off the bat for the pickup games. When everybody's like, "Oh, bring a 7," you could kind of bring whatever as long as you're not dropping like 4 drops on turn 1. I think it's fine actually.
And
I mean, I tell people bring an 8. Honestly, I say whatever. I don't want to feel bad. As long as it's not CEDH, I don't want to feel bad. All my decks just roll the table at some point if they don't stop me. So I don't want to feel bad about this. And I don't feel bad if they destroy me. So I usually just say, bring an 8 because 7 means nothing. And I mean, be a little stronger than me. And if I can get away with it, that's fine. If I die, also fine. So for me, the meta was, oh man, the bans, it's so easy now. I just say, bring whatever, don't CDH me. But otherwise, go for it. And I saw, we had some crazy games.
Yeah, I would say that like roughly Commander Clashy. There was a few decks that were obviously like stronger than that, and a few that were like flavor decks that were weaker. But I would say Commander Clash power levels roughly, right? And to wrap back around to something Tomer said, not only did I think that the bannings played out well in practice, one thing I didn't see was like the substitution thing. Because I remember like Mana Vault spiking right after the bans. I didn't see a Mana Vault all weekend. So it wasn't like most people just took out like their Mana Crypts and replaced them with the next best fast piece of mana. I just didn't see those like super fast swingy starts, like hardly at all. So I think it worked out maybe even better than I would have expected.
They just threw out their 6 mana value commanders like Tomer. I think I saw 1 7 mana value commander all weekend, and then most of it was just like lower to the ground, right? Maybe that's what people did to fix this problem.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Underrepresented cards. So, Tomer, overrepresented cards. We missed something. Tomer, what was your overrepresented card?
So my overrepresented card was a card that I thought was a staple before, but like kind of fell out of favor. But I was on the receiving end of it a lot. Vandal Blast. 1 mana, red sorcery, destroy target artifact you don't control, but has overload cost of 5 mana, 4 in the red, and then you destroy all artifacts you don't control. This card used to be like everywhere in early days of Commander, and then I just kind of forgot about this card. And I felt like everybody forgot about this card because I never saw it anymore. But then I got Vandal Blasted twice over the weekend, which is not like a lot, but it's more than 0, which is what it's been for like the past 5 years. And I'm just trying to say
we play farewell till
artifacts,
Vandal Blast.
Artifacts do nothing wrong, so I don't know why you're running it. So I think maybe it's overrepresented because leave my artifacts alone, please and thank you.
I'm curious, Tomer. Do you think that's like part of just the Commander Clash meta? Because I think part of our meta is we think Mana Rocks are bad, so we don't play Mana Rocks. And if Mana Rocks are bad, then Vandal Blast is bad. So we just don't see Vandal Blast. If you look on EDH Rec, it's still one of the like 5 most played cards. So what are your play groups outside of Commander Clash like? Are they still like not very Vandal Blasty? Because I think that might be a card that like a lot of people play, but we just don't play it in Commander Clash because of our unique meta.
I legit just don't see it like Commander Night and stuff. I don't remember the last time I got Vandal Blasted. I usually get like, actually no,
Interesting.
that's every time I play Tetsun, somebody hits me with like a Bane of Progress. I see Bane of Progress a whole bunch. I see Farewell a whole bunch. I don't see Vandal Blast for some weird reason. I don't know why.
Interesting.
It's too narrow now. But so interestingly, you can see the true believers versus the non-believers real quick. So you'll see some people play absolutely 0 mana rocks, and they will play like the Richard scuffed pay 5 mana ramp 1 land just for the sake of it. And then there are people that will just spew out like Arcane Signet into Worn Power Stone into whatever.
It's me.
So there were still a ton of mana rocks at the con, I would say, in general. And I would say in general, they got wrecked. like sometimes someone did Soul Ring into Smothering Tide and like ran away with it, but a lot of the times they just played mana rocks, and then the inevitable Farewell or something would come, and then they were set back to the Stone Ages. So that's interesting. You still see that division there of mana rocks versus no mana rocks.
I think mana rocks are still pretty good. I don't know. I don't agree with that take. I don't think they were just all
But you
blown
don't
away.
play Arcane Signet, Richard? You don't play not even Arcane Signet? How? Well, wow.
I don't even play. I mean, so my decks
Why?
don't even need a Soul Ring because there's nothing. But like,
No
I don't play
take.
any of those mana rocks, right?
Mm.
I mean, because I have like a mana about like color intensive commander in Derevi, and Arabella, the 2 mana does really nothing for me, really, right? So from Soul Ring, so I actually didn't include Soul Ring in any of my decks by choice, not by.
It is still wrong, but I get it.
No. Soul Ring and Derevi does
It's
nothing.
gotta be wrong.
that I will firmly stand behind.
Okay,
that.
Derevi,
I see
man.
arguments
I agree with
in
that.
Arabella.
Arabella, though, you should probably, because like Welcoming Vampires,
In the Revi,
Mentor the Meek, and
Okay.
all that stuff exists.
I mean, just it gets blown away. It gets blown away by my rats.
And just don't play any permanents. You should just go Spellslinger Swarm every single game, and then you'll never die to rats.
All right. Speaking of Soul Rings and crazy accelerants, underrepresented cards, I didn't see a single open the way this weekend. People were not as high on what I consider to be the greatest commander card of all time, Open the Way. Did you guys notice this? Like, just not as much
I've seen one.
ramp or
I almost
people like
counted it, but
cultivates.
then-
People like Nature's Lures and cultivates and stuff like that. The 2 and 3 mana ramp I saw, but the big ramp and especially Open the Way, Omen Path Journey,
Yeah.
stuff like that, I didn't see any
What?
of.
Because
think-
the mana
yeah,
bases are like reasonable, because it wasn't like I run all 10 fetches and then I'm running all the most basic utility lands, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, I'm running mostly basics, a couple shocks, maybe 1 fetch, like
It's still a ramp
that's
3 or ramp
normal,
4, right?
still-
Like even
yeah.
if you have 4
No,
basics,
no.
it's still hot, right?
it's still it's so late. Oh god, this is such an overrated card in like a typical deck. If you're like a Field of the Dead deck,
He will
if you're
learn.
Field of the Dead deck, it's fine, it's great. But if you're like a
Wow.
reasonable
Oh.
land base that's just like mostly basics and like a couple utility lands and whatever, it's like so overrated. It's not even
I
that
mean,
interesting. I take a rampant growth over it any day.
I mean, that's different. You have to play Rapid Growth, but
I mean, you still you
Or
play
Nature's
Rapid Growth to
Lore,
do it
but-
a turn earlier, Tomer, and then you untap with 10 mana.
10
It's
mana.
so crazy. So
I
I saw I
Go
saw
ahead, Bill.
one and almost countered it, but then I thought I don't counter the ramp spell. I'm still not sure if it was correct because untapping with 10 mana, pretty scary. I don't know where they won, but I did it once, and I gotta say, I wish I hit basics because I hit 2 bounce lands, and I had to discard 2 hand size. So that might not be the best case there, but still, untapped with hella mana, so I'm not even sure if that's too bad.
wait, but that's your own Open the Way? That doesn't count. Did you see other
my
people
own.
play
No, no.
Open the
I
Way?
guess
I
many
see-
Open the Ways.
No, I seen someone else cast it, and yeah, it was scary. It is crazy.
I didn't see a single one, but I think
didn't
that makes sense because it's still like 2% on EDH Rec. And I think Tomer is right, even though he's wrong. He's right in the sense that I think people think it's bad because their deck is full of basics. Because I definitely notice that most people play way more basics than we play. Like, I would say 20 basics is probably the norm, even in like 2 or 3 color decks that I saw. Like, everyone's just running so many basics. And I think they think, oh, if I'm only getting basics, then it's not very good. That's wrong. It's still absurd, even if you get all basics. But I could see why people people would end up not playing it based on that logic. Did you think there were a ton of basics there? Like, was that just me, or were your pods also very basic heavy? Because I feel like that's one
Lots of
place
basics.
our meta difference is different than the rest of the people there.
It's
I
definitely
have-
not Clash meta, but it's definitely so there are lots of people just playing like all basics or like 90% basics, but a lot less of them than I would expect, because in each pod there was clearly a person that subscribed to the Richard meta of like 0 basics, right? Like a price of progress for like 20 on their face like was very common. But then it was split, right? There, for every Richard, there was a Tomer. There's probably 2 Tomers for every Richard at a pod. So some played no basics, and then the rest played like all basics. So, but I think it's trending towards non-basics. I think if you go back like 2 or 3 years, almost everyone had like just basic mana bases. But people are waking up to the power of like Shifting Woodland, Glacial Chasm, Urza's Cave, Urza Saga, like. You can't play
I'll
Glacial
take it.
Chasm and just play all basics, right? You gotta get the Urza's
that's-
Cave into
that's just
Maze
power
of Myth,
creep,
into
right?
Glacial Chasm, right?
Like power
So it
creep
was-
is
yeah, you
just
inevitable.
get so many
non
lands.
basics are gonna get better.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they have more. They print more cards that reward running basic lands. I think there's a lot of reasons why you should be running basics. I made an entire video on reasons why, but I would like to see more. If Wizards of the Coast is listening, print more basic payoffs. That'd be nice.
The power's got to be so crazy, though. At this point, we can probably win a game, but didn't you just almost win a game by just playing Urza Saga and copying it and then activating it? Like,
Yeah.
how much
That was
power are you
that was a
gonna
very
put into
specific
basic?
restriction. I had to do 1 drops only, and we had to reach.
Still,
No, I
still
played an
almost
Izzet
worked.
deck where I basically just won with lands because my commander was like a
Yeah.
2/2 haste or something, and I like
No.
double copied a spell or something, and like you could just win with lands. And we're
I mean,
ignoring Field of the
Lanes
Dead.
is one of the
Clearly,
best
with Field of the Dead,
archetypes.
you could just win the game, right?
Yeah. I think we've all agreed that Lanes is like the best one of the best archetypes in Commander. Like if you're building a Lanes deck, you're just like way ahead of the rest of the table by default.
It's a half archetype for free in your deck, right? Like even if you don't put all the lands matters, if you just jam your deck with 37 utility lands, you have half a lands deck for free in whatever deck you're building, right?
How much land hate did you see? Because I know I played against at least one Blood Moon. There was one Armageddon. Like, did you see, I feel like maybe those cards are more accepted out in the wilds than they are for us on Commander Clash. Like, did you see any of those cards that we just don't play at all, like show up in your pods?
I saw Ruination and Armageddon. I
I was in the
That's
same
the
pot as
same to me.
Tomer with the Armageddon. I don't know if that would be socially acceptable. And then the blood.
they did-
we
they
had a
did ask
Vegas
in
for the Moon
advance.
game, Seth, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah. I
that,
also
that
had
was
Vegas
that,
for the Moon
that was
game.
one of the pods where the power levels was not right because we were basically
That was pretty
playing, like,
CDH-y. Yeah, that was
it was not.
close.
I mean, the Winona deck was CDH. The Dragon deck was not, but that's clearly like a 8 power level deck. But we got
Yeah.
Blood Mooned, and then the Armageddon they did ask, and then we also
They asked
whatever.
ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's proper. I think you have
Yeah.
the rules. You have to ask about that first.
But other than that, I didn't really see. I mean, I got strip mined. Well, it was
And
the
that
same
deck was
Armageddon
sweet.
guy though. I got strip
Yeah.
mined out of from the Armageddon deck, but I didn't see much land hate or much Ruination. I think is a hot one. Like, is that okay to play Ruination or not? And my answer is it probably sucked in the meta, right? Because like chances are 1 or 2 people would go unscathed through that Ruination, so it's not worth playing. So
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fine.
I don't know
kind
if
of
it's socially
handed me the
acceptable or not.
game.
It would just suck actually, right? in that meta.
It basically just handed me the game because I was like a basic believer. So I lost like 2 lands and everybody else lost a lot more. And I was like, okay, I'll just recover faster than everybody.
Underrepresented card, Seth. You have an interesting one here.
Ooh, so this one surprised me, and maybe it's just like budget stuff, but in our meta, one ring Trouble in Pairs show up pretty much every week. There's at least one person that's playing them, sometimes multiple people playing them, because they're just some of the strongest draw engines in the format, right? You play them for 4 mana, and they draw you an absurd number of cards. I saw 0 Trouble in Pairs through the entire weekend, not a single one, and maybe one ring in a Lord of the Rings deck, but it wasn't something that I was seeing very often. I was curious, was it like that for y'all, or did I just hit the weird pods and people are playing these cards? Because I feel like these are some of the cards that you play in like every single deck, and I just didn't see them all weekend.
It's weird. I didn't see a single Trouble Pairs. I saw
Really?
2
Same.
rings though. and I
Okay.
managed to crush both of them very promptly, which I felt very gratified. But I didn't see a single trouble in pairs. It was very weird. Like I consider it like one of the strongest cards in the entire format. I haven't seen it being played.
Yeah.
Do people not realize that this card is like insane?
I saw Smothering Ties. Lots of people would be playing Smothering Ties, but no one was playing Trouble in Pairs like at all.
Weird.
It's just very.
It is expensive.
Maybe
Same
it's,
with the
yeah,
Rico.
price.
I feel a lot of people were trying to Pokédex us and like play one game each. So I'm pretty sure we had an overlap in players. But I saw a ton of Trouble in Pairs in One Rings. Like it's as if I never left home. It's
Oh.
as if I never
saw
left
two.
home, and every Trouble in Pairs drew a billion cards. It's as if nothing changed. So I actually saw a ton of these cards, and no one plays around it. Everyone's like, oh, I gotta cast my second spell. This
what
are you gonna
literally
do? Yeah.
swing the board in my favor, right? So
Well, it's like most of your commanders say, like, whenever you do X, you draw a card. And it's like, okay, well, am I supposed to not draw cards? Like, I don't know. It's like very weird.
You know what's funny though? The Trouble in Pairs, players can't take an extra turn clause. Actually saw it relevant. Someone actually tried to take an extra turn. And they're like, nope.
It's like the weirdest thing
Wow.
tacked on.
Get him.
I'm like, oh,
doesn't
you
even
actually
fit, like, the
remembered
flavor
the
of the
trigger. Like, nice.
I feel like some designer threw that in. I don't know why. Like, what's the story behind that extra clause? It
Just give it
seems
a
so,
little
like
oomph to see play, Tom. Just give it a little oomph.
Yeah, it wasn't
weird.
quite good enough.
It wasn't good
it
enough.
wasn't good
yeah.
enough. Wasn't good enough. Right? Yeah.
I have one more question before someone else goes. So Krim's not here, but Krim's choice here, because he wrote it down, was Farewell and Board Wipes. And I know Krim's not here to defend himself, but I'm curious because I felt like a lot of really grindy, like 8 sweeper games that took 3 hours. There were some that were the other direction where there was like no RAS and someone went really quick. But I played like 3 or 4 games throughout the weekend that were like 3-hour grinds where everyone was, oh my God, Wrath number 8, not again, another reset. What was your experience with that? Because I felt like there was a lot of Wraths and grindy games this weekend.
There was a lot of interaction in my games, like a lot of targeted removal and a lot of board wipes. And I saw a good deal of farewells too. So
Wow.
it wasn't my
It was
experience.
so
very interactive.
different for me. So I've seen pretty much like Seth said, the games where there were board wipes, there were a lot. So we had a game with like 2 farewells, and like everything got wiped every turn. But most of the games for me were just you get away with everything and no board wipes, and whoever rolls the tables first.
You win every
got
pod
it.
then? How do you beat Phil if there's not a board wipe?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
true.
No, but even like I
No
think you need at least spot removal. Like a Swords of we meme on sports suppressors all the time, and we'll talk about it later. But like if like Phil's Marnius Calgar goes on the battlefield and gets swords immediately, Phil's basically out of that game for like 3 turns.
Insane.
It's like insane. Like you just need to have more interaction against the Phil deck, and then you're fine.
I think
why not
every
just
Marnius
wrap
Calgar game,
And get rid
I
of other
just-
stuff too.
I
think
just
it's
played him on
sometimes
turn
Slash
5.
meta, very
away with
few
it.
spot removal spells, a ton of board wipes. So the game is either a 30-minute game because like someone like powers out a turn 4, turn 5 Raffle Stomp commander and like no one actually has interaction and the game just goes over, or it's 2 to 3 hour game. Right? I think the number of games I played this weekend is probably the least out of every con we've gone to. Like a lot of grindy games. We're like, oh, we have an event in 3 hours. This is fine. Right. And
Plenty
then,
of time.
you know, after you remove my commander for the 3rd time, I can't win the game. So I guess I have to farewell now. Right. We farewell. Right. And a lot of farewells, a lot of undo inversions, a lot of sweepers, but not only like creature sweepers, but mass board sweepers. So I actually felt very grindy, just like Clash, right? And but like maybe it's on purpose. Like, oh, I'm in a game with Tomer. I want this to last forever. Let's board wipe, right? Like I don't know, right? But I feel people were trying to win the game, but they had their backs against the wall and they had no choice but to snap off the wrath. Because everyone was always like, you know, like a lot of games went to like natural decking. Like, I'm not even joking, right? Where like our libraries were like 10, 15 cards.
Natural.
Right? Yeah. I had several
maybe
games
I'm
where that
Mill them out.
happened.
Gotta mill them
Maybe
out.
it's because I played all aggro decks, but I don't think I ever had a game go to 2 hours. I think it was always like
Wow.
between an hour and a half maximum.
I was playing
You're-
Arabella, man, because you got to fight through the
Yeah.
glacial chasms,
Yeah.
and the sweepers,
No,
and
but,
everything.
like-
And it's like, oh my god, guys, like, come on.
But
let
if
me
somebody
kill
if
you.
somebody goes for a wrath and you have a T Pro in hand, I think that's GG, right? Like, okay, thank you for clearing the board of everything, and now I just I phase back in, and now I win. So
Well,
like, I don't know.
You didn't get
There's-
pierced on your T Pro.
Yeah, some people don't have the 1-2 combo. Sometimes it just goes through.
Seth, did you see a lot of board wipes? Which meta did you see?
Oh yeah, so it was a mixer. It was kind of like you. It was either games where they were over in like 45 minutes and someone just pulled super far ahead and there were no interaction. But once the interaction showed up, it was wrath into wrath into wrath, and we ended up playing like 3-hour games. So if once the wrath came, there was gonna always be 2 or 3 more to follow it. So it felt pretty clashy over. I mean, I guess maybe that's Commander. Sometimes you don't draw the wrath, and the cards are just so powerful now that if no one draws a wrath, someone's probably going to run away with the game. But yeah, once the rats show up, it turns into a grind really quick.
Yeah.
All right, Phil. Underrepresented cards.
So I would have said Wrath Protection, like Clever Concealment. But the thing that happens if you do this in our group is you get counter spells. And I'm not sure if I get counter spell a single time. So you just get away with stuff like Clever Concealment. And pretty much everything. Did anybody get counter spell? Maybe 1 mana drain or something?
I feel
I
I
don't know.
saw
if
like
if
3
you counted me,
counterspells
I
all
don't
weekend.
remember. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw.
The more we talk about it,
I
the
don't know
more
if there's a
Clash
single
meta that's gonna be
one.
coming. I remember I
There
saw
might have been
Fierce
0.
Guardianship and a Swan Song. And then Tomer played a counterspell somewhere. I don't know if we're gonna count that one.
Yeah, I'm
But,
sure
like,
I've seen some,
a
but
handful.
not like on Clash. I'm so scared, especially playing against Crim. You
It's
know,
only Crim that
the
plays
big
them.
stuff is not
Yeah.
gonna happen. Yeah, maybe.
I think I
But
saw a
every one of
handful.
us plays.
Not that many.
like-
not enough.
Even I play 2 per deck, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
1 or 2
I think
per
there's
deck. There are
more
people.
for me.
Remember back in the days, people would play like 5 or 6 because they think it's the
Oh,
greatest
yeah,
card
so
in
many.
Well,
existence.
Crim plays like
right?
8 to 10, right?
Well, that's
So-
Crim.
But no, I think like 2 is like about my average as well per deck. Weird.
I feel like counter spells might be underrated at this point, or like
They
maybe
are.
it's just the social aspect of like people know that people are salty about them, so they don't play them. But I feel like counter spells should be played
Stacks.
more than they were this weekend.
I
Oh,
feel
yeah,
they're
I saw
hated out
stacks,
though.
too.
I saw a lot of Cavern of Souls. I saw a lot of silence effects, like
Yep. Oh,
maybe not
like
literal
Grand
silence,
Arbiters
but,
and
like,
stuff.
like
Cut
Grand
Soul is a really good one.
Abolisher,
Or
Ranger,
Abolisher, yeah.
Captain of whatever the EOS one that sacks to like
Yeah.
silence someone for a non-creature. So
Yeah.
it's possible that they're just hated out in the general meta because people were definitely prepared for the counter spell, right? But most of the time it's like T Pro, pass priority, pass priority, pass priority. Okay, cool. Like okay, that was unexpected, right? So
mhm.
yeah. Okay. Speaking of T Pro, overperforming cards. So
skip Toma.
Wait,
a big skipped again. Where's your-
oh, because we did.
you
Crim-
keep
oh,
going
my fault.
past
Seth,
me.
Seth pulled Crim's card in, and I thought that
Oh,
was your
that's,
card.
that's my
What?
bad.
Okay, Tomer, what's your card? Tomer, what's your card?
So this is like my favorite card in the format. It's actually not okay. Maybe my second favorite card in the format. Cause is my favorite, but if I had to choose like one that I would jam into like any regular deck, it's actually Ink Shield. 5 mana, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. I know this table is not pro Ink Shield. I know Crim would have my back on this, but he's not here. But I think like this is like one of the best like pseudo like cool finishers in any deck. It's less of a fog and more of a finisher in my opinion, where like, oh, you get swung for 5 damage, you make 10 power flyers on the battlefield, and then you can swing immediately on your turn. And then, you know, if you get swung for like 10 damage, something that could be actually like posing something lethal, then you probably have lethal for the rest of the table immediately. I saw it played one time this entire convention, which was a travesty to me. And I heard that it got played one time and it crushed Richard. But the time that it was played at my table, somebody played Ink Shield, and then in response, another person cast Aetherize just to prevent the Ink Shields from appearing, so it would all die. So like they intentionally bounced like themselves, all the attackers, to make sure that the Ink Shield player doesn't just win the game when they untapped, which I thought
Couldn't
was
they
very
just-
funny.
Couldn't they just cast the Easter-Eyes on the Ink Shield tokens? Wouldn't that also have been a way to do it?
It was an Esper player, so I guess they were worried that maybe they'd have a counter spell
Oh, I see.
when they untapped.
I mean, you could play because you make so much power. You can play smart and play around Ether Eyes too, right? You can attack with half of the Inklings. I was in the mythical game where I was already dead. I didn't lose the Ink Shield, but the person who won the game had Ink Shield, and even then, I thought it was underwhelming, right? Because this player basically did nothing the whole game because they were flooded. The 3 remaining players killed each other. And then on the last turn, the remaining board went to this player. They ink shielded, untapped, and won the game. Right? But if it had literally been a legit spell, they could have did something the whole game rather than sitting around and doing nothing the whole game and winning off the ink shield.
One spell and they won the game, Richard.
Yeah, but that's because they couldn't do anything else. And then it didn't show off the theme of their deck, right? The problem is it's like a generic win con that doesn't show off your deck's theme. And like if the attacking player had a single wrath, it would have been all for moot, especially at 1 damage. They were a red deck, so they could have theoretically did 1 damage to all creatures to render this.
Pyroclasm.
Yeah, so I saw theoretically done a lot of stuff, underwhelmed by it.
They played one spell and they won the game,
like,
and you're poo-pooing it. I don't get it.
One very niche case.
One spell win the game.
If it was Secret Rendezvous, they could have just played a real game of Magic instead of being
who knows,
maybe the whole game, right?
Or they probably would have just lost if they didn't have Ink Shield. They played the better card and they won.
I'm still waiting to see Ink Shield happen on Clash.
It's so annoying because
the more
it's 2
I
colors,
think about it,
Orzhov, so it's like so hard to put it in an actual deck.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah,
Krim always says this too, and then he plays an Orzhov deck, and he's like, "Oh, but for thematic reasons, I can't put it in."
I will put it.
Yeah,
I
also,
swear to you, every single Orzhov deck I play on Commander Clash will have Ink Shield.
5 mana.
Sure,
though.
but
It's 5
everybody
mana.
else, like somebody can just fork you in response, and you're just like it's.
And you wasted 5 mana.
Somebody can just somebody could have the perfect answer for your response too. But it's like, okay,
there's always a fork, trust me.
Or a board wipe,
Try
or
to get
whatever, or a single card. But this is also a fog.
But there could also be a wrath intervening, right? Before you untap, there could be a wrath to take care of all of this, right?
Sure.
So anyway.
Sure. So, but then they wrap their own attackers too that they
Tomer
attack
declares it underrepresented. I declare
It's so
it appropriately represented for its power
so
level.
good. They'll all
Yeah, I'm
see.
with Richard.
All right. So we don't accidentally forget Tomer. Overperforming cards. Tomer, hit us off.
Hell yeah. All right. Mana Geyser. 5 mana. What's it called? 5 mana sorcery. Add 1 red mana to your mana pool for each tap land your opponent's control. I think every single red deck that I came across ran this card. And every single time it was cast, it made like 15 plus mana, and usually helped win the game, I think. So I've cast it a bunch of times over the weekend, but also I saw other people play it. Like somebody was playing Felden of the Third Path, played it, popped off, won the game. There was one burn deck. It was the Osier act. There was like the Flip God. That was like a burn commander. Played it, chained a bunch of burn spells, won the game. So yeah, I think paying 5 mana to get like 15 mana plus back as a ritual usually wins the game. And this card is kind of insane.
Yeah, card's incredibly busted. Like and it works so well with red because you got Underworld Breach, and it's just so easy to like go off with. If anything, the card's like borderline too good almost. Like it just makes so much mana.
It needs
like
to be banned, actually.
It's like slow fast mana because you're not doing it till like turn 5 or in the late game usually.
Yeah,
but
it's mid-late.
still, like it pretty much is win the game if you resolve this, you should win the game that turn.
Oh yeah.
You
Should
should.
like
I don't know
dark side,
if
but
it's fun,
not
though.
as
Is it
cute.
fun? Is it actually
know,
like
I
a
don't
fun
play it.
way to win the game? Because it
I
ends up
like
just being
it.
like these storm combo kills, right? Like, don't you just end up doing it and then you just like storm off and everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's
You
cool.
don't even
Yeah,
need to
you got
storm.
me.
Like, so it's very easy to generate 15 mana. The longer the game goes, the better it is for you, right? You might generate 20 mana. You can just fork it for 30, 40 mana. And then seemingly impossible things become very possible when you have 40 mana to play with. So there could be an argument for getting this banned in our Clash meta just to mix things up. But even the general thing, but it's like untap make at least, so if you have 5 lands, chances are you have 3 opponents with 5 lands, that's 15 mana, right? So you net 10 mana, right? So it's actually insane. The only thing holding back is it's all red. That's the only thing holding it back, right? So if you're playing like a 5 color deck, you're like, oh, this is weird.
I think that's what
but
makes it
it's
balanced
insane.
because like red has like such bad ramp. I think red has the worst ramp in the entire game.
Yeah, but there's like, you don't need to go from no ramp to win the game ramp. There could be some kind of
Yeah,
in
though.
between
It's
here,
the middle
right?
Oh,
ground.
yeah, man. Look, just stop playing lanes, all right? You green players, stop
Don't
open
tap
the
out.
lane
Play it
for
instantly.
5
No.
or whatever. Yeah. Stop giving more mana with Mana Geyser.
All right. My overperforming card is a shocker, but somehow not a shocker, and it's the Fairies Pro. So we all know how good the card is, and we know that it's auto-include every white deck, yet it somehow overperformed this weekend. I think I saw at least 4 or 5 games where people won off the backs of a timely to Fairies Pro, right? Either, and it usually was not to protect their board. Even though, you know, that's the upside of it. Usually it's like, I'm gonna nope out as you try to win the game, and I'm untouchable until it's my turn again. Then when I untap, I'm gonna win the game. It somehow overperformed, even though it's probably known as like the best card in white and the best card in Commander. It just wins games. I would play 5 of them in my deck if I could have access.
Oh,
to them.
God.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
all you need is just 1 extra turn to win, and stopping your opponent is too difficult, right? Because they could be winning through an enchantment-based combo, combat, or something, right? The only thing it doesn't stop is like if they have like an actual I win the game card, like a Thoracle. I died casting Teferi's Pro because someone Walking Ballista Helioded, right? So they tried to silence, IT Pro'd out, and then they did Walking Ballista Heliod. I'm like, great, so I died on my upkeep. But outside of that, it just won games. It won so many games. MVP, totally worth every single cent this card is worth. If it was $100, I'd still be buying it, putting it in my deck. So somehow shocking that the best card in the format is still the best card.
Yeah, not only does it win games, it wins games that you otherwise were almost certainly going to lose. I think that's the power of T-Pro. Like, it's not like it just puts you ahead when you're already ahead or whatever. It puts you ahead and lets you win when you almost certainly were going to die. Yeah, the card's just, it's so absurd. Every single deck should play it, I guess, if you're trying to make it as powerful as possible.
Yeah, card is very good.
Hate it.
Silly.
I kind of hate it, though.
I kind of hate it.
So anticlimactic.
It shouldn't fog into your next turn. Like it should have been like until the end of the turn, your life total can't change or something, just to make
Then
it
you
more
gotta play
fair.
Counterspell or something. Like there's like the threats are so varied. There's no way to leave up mana and be sure you can interact with your opponent outside of T-Pro. And even T-Pro is not
fine, though.
infallible.
But do we need a card that's like you're guaranteed not to die for a turn? Like, I don't know if we
That's
need
true.
that.
I don't think we need
At least
that.
It's almost like
Exile
time
itself.
walk.
You said
But-
that, right. It is white time walk, right? You're guaranteed an extra turn while keeping your board immune. Which is time walk,
Yeah.
Because time walk is you take a turn immediately, so no one can touch your board in the meantime. So that's interesting. Phil, I see a card here. Does it count if it's your own deck?
Okay, even if not, every one of us had a very surprising. Oh wait, will you play this card? Mine is Fairy Artisan. Turns out if you don't wrath me and I get a copy of each creature, it's pretty good. But then again, also we had the Primeval Titan problem where people, when they copy something, they just copy my Fairy Artisan. Good choice. And it's just so good every time, and you get ETB triggers, and I had a crazy setup with stealing a Soul Herder, which made me reset my Artisan every time. I had a Wandering Throne on Artisans, what's the Artificers to get double tokens. It's just, I don't know. I know I sound like a broken record, and the card isn't even
Or you
originally.
gotta
I
wrath
saw
Phil
it-
at
I
every
saw it, you have to
opportunity.
play. Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
don't wrap it, it's just we don't even know what it stops. Like if the opponent doesn't play a Ewit to not have me have one, that's also value. So there's hidden value in it as well. I know.
So you're
a
saying it's
broken
a
record
stacks
thing, but-
piece, technically.
Oh my
Exactly. You're not letting me cast my cards.
I'm surprised
It's
you guys
so
didn't
good.
take backsies the Soul Herder. Did the person casting the Soul Herder understand the interaction, or was it too late?
No, I didn't really understand it at first. But oh boy, yeah, like when I hit my add step, I noticed I can eternalize my artisan tokens, and also artisan flickering, exiling the tokens grows it. So many triggers. My brain was fried, but it was worth it.
I think Seth has a very similar card.
I do. This
Yeah.
this is another one of my cards. So heading out to Vegas, I was like, I'm gonna put together a new deck just to go bring to this MagicCon. So I put together Kemble Profiteering Mare because I think it's super fun to like give your opponent tokens and you get copies of them, which is basically its whole gimmick. The first time your opponent makes a token during a turn, you get copies of it, and then you drain whenever a token enters. So I built a Kemble deck, and I could not play it all weekend. I played a game at the hotel with Phil, and he was playing his token deck, and it was an absolute nightmare, and it was like just so ridiculous. But every pot I went to, I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna play Kemble. I put this deck together for the con, but then someone would be playing a token commander of some kind, and I'd be like, all right, well, I guess I just won't play this. Like, I'm not gonna put everyone through that. So it went like that through the entire weekend. But I am convinced that Kemble is just like, if you're in the colors, there's so many tokens being produced in Commander, not only dedicated token decks, but treasures and bloods and foods, that you just get value out of this in basically any deck. Like, it's just such a ridiculous value card. So now I'm thinking of tearing apart the Kemble deck because I don't know if I can ever play it, but I'm just going to jam it in the 99 of anything that's in the colors for value because I think it's just good enough. Like, it's just a 99 card.
Wait, you run it
I
outside of
played
a token
in
deck?
the 99.
You put it
No,
outside
so
of a token
I have a deck where it's the commander of a token deck, like a
No,
give
but-
you token deck.
Would
But
you
I
put it
think
in
you
the
can just
99
jam
account?
this. Yes, I think you can
Free
just jam
value.
this in a deck and get value out of it. Like, I think it's like Fairy Artisans that your opponents make so many tokens now that they're going to trigger it enough that you get value out of it. Just like you play Fairy Artisans and your opponents are going to play creatures and you're going to get value out of it. So I think you can just play it as like a good stuff card and it'll be perfectly fine and really, really good in some games.
I played in 2 of my decks in the 99, and you just get incidental value the entire game. It's also a win con if you are a token deck, so I played in Kalgar and Necrobloom. But yeah, imagine the opponent ink shields, and you get the tokens as well. What? You didn't even need to pay mana for.
Yes.
I mean, it's offset, right? I
Counter
mean,
to ink
just
shield.
just a simple smothering tide is good enough, right? Like you,
Oh.
you get so much value with Kemble, and we got stuck in the death loop of Kemble and Fairy Artisan.
Yeah, I copied
Phil,
Seth,
Seth.
Campbell. Yeah.
Like
No.
if you
Yeah,
play
but-
the token
not
deck,
okay.
like, the game is over.
I don't
The
know
game
what
is
happened.
unplayable for anyone else, right? So there's
It's
just
basically,
random
yeah.
auto wins with it, right?
It's basically the
Yeah.
people who own those pieces, they have to pop. It's like trade secrets. Those 2 people get to pop off, and the other 2 people are just get crushed. Like, they don't even have a chance. They have to find a board wipe ASAP, or else they're just out.
That's why I wouldn't run it against other token decks, because I think it would just be not fun for the rest of the table. Like, if me and the token deck would have a great time, the other
Yeah.
2 people would not be having fun.
And 2 people will have a great time.
All right, underperforming cards, and I didn't want to bring this up, but Seth made me. But it was Swords to Plowshares. I never once throughout the entire con was begging for Swords to Plowshares, but I was begging for a Farewell or Teferi's Pro many, many times, almost every situation. And actually, I saw a single Swords to Plowshares fired off the con, and it was actually Seth's Swords to Plowshares against me. He killed like a 20 power Mockingbird, which saved him from dying, but then gave me enough life to stabilize that I can win the game. So I'm like, actually, this was net good for me. But I did not think like, oh, I needed to run Swords to Plowshares after this weekend. There are certain cards that I thought I needed to run. Bajuka Bog, Strip Mine. I don't run those cards. I'm like, oh, I definitely need to run these now. Swords to Plowshares never entered the conversation, and I was always begging for a Farewell. I'm like, please, someone Farewell. I need a Farewell. Can I wish a Farewell into this? But never Swords. So I don't.
What about
I
Path
I-
Exile?
I'm
Wait,
Path-
so-
actually, so once in a while I would because I'm mana screwed. I need to path my own dork to to get the land.
for ramp.
But yeah,
I-
it's fine.
There were some matchups where Swords I think would have been good. Like I played against an Alexio stack, like the new like slasher card or splicer card that just smashes everyone every turn. That was a matchup where Swords would have been really good. But in general, I kind of had the same experience that so many people are spewing so much onto the battlefield so quickly that removing a single thing just wasn't enough. Like, we had a lot of tables too where everyone was like, oh my god, it's turn 4 and we need a Wrath or this game is going to end, where a single spot removal spell just wasn't going to be enough to really do anything. So I think I'm kind of with you, where, like, I don't know, I don't think it was a great
Are you
weekend
cutting
for
it? You're
swords.
running it. Are you cutting it, Seth?
I'm on the
going
fence. I'm
back?
back. I went from like no swords to always swords, and now I'm back in the middle somewhere trying to figure it out. But this weekend was swords trending back down for me.
I guess I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because, like, I feel like it's like comparing apples and oranges. Like, board wipes are very, very good in terms of like card advantage and like getting rid of a lot of things all at once. But it's sorcery speed, and something like Farewell is 6 mana. So early on or mid game, that's going to be your entire turn is farewelling. Swords, though, is 1 mana at an instant speed. So if there's like a threat that is like, first of all, if there's like one big threat on the table, like let's say Phil is playing Marnius Calgar, he plays Malnir's Calgar. You know what? I don't want to wait until Farewell. I don't want to wait until Farewell mana. I want to just swords the Marnius Calgar and put Phil back 3 turns and not have to worry about it anymore. So I much prefer that too. And then sometimes there's a threat, but I'm not sure if the threat is actually coming at me or not. So I wait, and if it's coming at me, if I say, hey, if you attack me, I might have to deal with it. And then I have Swords to Plowshares in my hand. I feel much better than, like, let's say a Farewell. So I don't know. I feel it's apples and oranges. You want to have both. And I don't know. I feel like Swords is still decent.
So I had one situation. I think I didn't see too many swords, but I had it in my hand and didn't cast it for the game. But I didn't need to, I guess. Also, I think I'm still not sure. So if I play Manuus Calgar, please don't do this. But if you swords me, I will not win the game. It's
true.
If you use it for ankle shooting, it is so strong, but it kind of feels wrong to just screw somebody over when no enemies have been made yet.
Oh, come on. Phil's playing
Marnius
Calgar. He's already the enemy, all right?
Phil is the enemy,
No more convincing. All right,
the problem is this is what happens. Someone plays Voya, someone plays Trouble in Pairs, someone plays Manuus Calgar, and then you're like, like that was the problem, right? It was not like there's no good target. There's like too many targets for this.
Yeah.
So you're gonna let Phil draw a couple cards and then sweep them up into Farewell and hope that's enough. Because if I sit there and swords the Phil's thing, then the Voya guy is just gonna go nuts while Trouble in Pairs dude is like drawing 1,000 cards. Like that was more of the problem. Not that there's not a valid target to hit, but I'm putting myself behind while the rest of the table is still going ahead. So you really kind of need to reset everyone at once because of the variety of archetypes too, right? One person's an artifact deck, one person's an enchantment deck, one person's a creature deck. So that was the problem.
I think
you know what solves this? T-Pro into Farewell. You try to win the game, T-Pro out, untap Farewell.
I feel like certain decks also are just better aimed at using swords. Like, honestly, Richard, I think the bird deck actually wants swords more than Farewell because you're running all the coastal piracy effects. And I saw you play. You're usually playing with like 15 cards in your hand. Yep. Farewell is a very significant amount.
I don't play Farewell. I don't play Farewell in that deck. But I don't play swords either.
Too. But like, if you have 15 cards and just 1 mana and using 1 card, like, yeah, it puts you down a card relative to the rest of the table. But if you're drawing so many cards of all your coastal piracy effects, I think it's actually a better use of your card draw than having like a bunch of sweepers in it instead.
That is
so
correct.
I feel like it's
I
also
believe the swords would actually save me. So I would play Capsize if I wanted to do this, right?
Capsize is 6 mana with buyback though. It's awful.
It's okay. I got birds. I got Drevi. It's unlimited mana.
Oh, come on.
I mean,
or like Forbid. Forbid is actually the answer of choice here, right? Because I pitch the extra cards and make sure I can deal with anything I want. But yeah, fair point. But you know what the best card in birds is, Comer? It's the Fairies Pro.
It's costly.
It's the best card in
the Fairies Pro, followed by Flare of Fortitude, Like, make sure we don't die here no matter what shenanigans you do. There's a Forbid just in case. And then untap and kill you.
I do agree.
Well, since we're talking overrated cards, let me tell you about my attempt to fix the swords to plowshares problem. So in my deck, I was thinking, all right, I don't want to run swords because target removal sucks. What if I could run a swords, or I guess actually a Path to Exile that was also a wrath? So this weekend, I was jamming Winds of Abandon in a lot of my white decks. Winds of Abandon, 2-mana sorcery speed, exile a creature you don't control, its controller searches for a land, or you can overload it and hit all creatures you don't control for 6 mana. So I was thinking, I'm super smart, right? I got the Swords to Plowshares, I still got a Wrath, this is the best of both worlds. It turns out that it's not very good as targeted removal because it's sorcery speed, and then the Wrath mode, I often ended up losing because of the amount of lands I gave my opponent. I had one game where my opponent built a big board and I was like, okay, I got the Wrath, I got this covered table. I cast the Winds of Abandon with Overload. My opponent ramped out because apparently they're a Tomer basic believer, 15 basic lands because they're playing 30 basic lands in their deck. And then they just combo killed because they had 30 lands and won because I cast the Winds of Abandon. So I think I'm back off the Winds of Abandon train. I thought it was going to be like this super sweet tech to like get around the Swords to Plowshare problem, but it mostly just backfired. So did you guys see any Winds of Abandon? What do you think of Winds of Abandon?
I didn't see it, but I kind of feel like the card would be better if it also targeted your creatures because the ramp is just too much. I have never
left
passed
behind,
it so far, but if you keep your whatever dogs laying there, but everybody has all the lands,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk it. I don't know.
It's even worse Cyclonic Rift. So
Oh,
Wings of Abandon was not on my radar this weekend, but I saw so much of it. I would have chose it as one of the overrepresented cards, and it was pretty mediocre, even though I straight up died to it. So in one game, someone Wings of Abandon, I lost all my blockers, they just killed me, right? That's like the good case, right? And then another game, someone overloaded it, IT pro'd out. I'm like, yo, whatever, right? The other two players ramped 10 lands, and then we proceeded to have like a 2-hour game because like, you know, everyone had like unlimited mana, you know, their commander be cast for like 8,000 time. So it totally backfired, right? So as it's like cycle, right? If you're winning, you can use it to remove blockers and close out the game. But a lot of the times you're on your back foot, and all it did was give everyone more value, right? Like, they lost 4 creatures, but they got 4 lands, and now they can deploy the rest of their hand. Psych Rift, everything bounces back to reuse ETBs. So I felt it was the same thing, but like it doesn't even save you because it's sorcery speed, right? And maybe it's better in our meta where like, well, I ramp 2 basics and that's it, right? But at the con, like most people could get a respectable number of basics.
Yeah.
And even when I was hit,
many.
like Birds managed to ramp out like 4 basics, and like that's good enough to like slingshot me ahead, right? So I actually walked away super underwhelmed with wins, and I saw way more than I would have expected. Apparently, there's some secret wins, you know, meta that I was not aware of, right? And I'm like, oh, right? But I'm like, no, I don't want this card. It sucks.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
back off
the
it.
problem is there's another like overarching theme for this whole con, like the experience. Not just me, but everybody draws so many cards that usually the mana is the problem. So you don't want to give them 10 lands, because I had so many games where I just had my whole deck in my hand, sometimes my entire deck in my hand, which is not too cool. But it's the mana that's the problem. So maybe don't give them hella lands.
Mm-hmm.
I
kind of
need
agree
to
with that.
opposition agent first. So
Yeah, no,
if you
are
oppo
ways-
agent first.
There are ways of building around it. Like, obviously, white has catch-up ramp, so it's like, oh, it turns on my catch-up ramp. That's kind of cute. Archaeomancer's map, or
Have
like
30 planes in hand over to
Archivist of Ogma. You just draw a bunch of cards
That
while your
one's hot.
opponents are searching. There's Deep Gnome Terramancer. You only get it. It's once per turn, but you ramp a little bit with it. Opposition Agent's probably like the best case scenario, but then you have to be in black. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably best in a Commander Clash meta because y'all will just got like 1 basic and then cry. But at a regular con, I don't think it's very good. I think there's better options.
You can build around it, but it's just, there's so many other Wrath options that I think I'm switching back. The upside of being targeted removal doesn't outweigh the downside of like when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tomer, hit us with an underperforming card or mechanic.
It's just poison. I brought my poison deck to the convention. I found out nobody cared that I was running poison. Like I'd always say, like, "Hey, I'll give an
Did you
option."
break the 0% win rate though, Tomer? Did you
Nope.
get a win in?
I did not get a single win.
What's happening?
Did not get a single win the entire convention.
Doing it.
I played it 3 times. I went 0-3. Yeah, it was and I always gave people the choice, by the way. I would be like, I could play poison or this. So I played it 3 times because people asked to choose. They chose to play poison. No, one of the times was because somebody was playing Armageddon. The other person was playing like the Winter's stacks your hand thing. So it's like, okay, I'll play poison. You know, like why not? It feels appropriate. So it always underperformed. Once I got one poison counter on people, they would start freaking out. And yeah, it just never really did like a super proliferate. I think the closest I ever got was I had Radstorm in my hand, and it was an Armageddon game. And there was one turn where you guys like played like 4 spells in a turn, and I cast Radstorm, and I got somebody up to like, I think it was like 8 poison or 9 poison, but not enough to kill them. And then I promptly died. Yeah, poison seems absolutely fine.
So close.
It's so good, it's bad, because I actually played. So I was in the pod with Tomer. Tomer didn't accomplish anything, but we got Armageddon. That's different. I was in a Traxa pod, and it is hilarious. So one person got hit with an exographic skeleton.
Oh yeah,
they were done, right? They get proliferating every end step, like 2 or 3 counters. They were done. The rest of us, though, we're doing everything in our power to dodge 1 poison. So it's like I attack with a 1/4 beast within. I attack with a 1/4 T pro out. See you, right? Like we do the gig, right? I'm like, I'm not letting you get a single poison on me, and we spent all of our resources. It was like a T pro for 1 poison counter, and that made all the difference, right? Because the minute you get 1, the other 9 are coming like instantly, especially with a Traxa, right?
Instantly. No, our Traxa is 1 per turn. Okay.
Yeah, but no deck just does it the fair way, right? But we used all our resources, every spot removal, every maze of it, everything we could do to avoid a singular poison counter, because we know what happens. We saw our friend here got poisoned. He was like, "Oh, tis a scratch, guys," and then he was dead the next turn, right? So,
but did they win?
It's like so scary that everyone like goes far out of their way to dodge it, even though in reality, you might not be able to proliferate 3 people out in 1 turn cycle, but the chance of it happening is there. It's like a half combo piece, right? So everybody does everything to make sure your Traxa's dead, to make sure they get none, right? Yeah, so it's so potent that everyone just runs away and beats you down.
I think it's very much the mental game, because it's like, well, in theory, maybe you could proliferate like 5 times in a turn. Like Radstorm exists. I think that's the only one where it's like really you could actually accomplish that. There's like Flux Channeler and Exorbital Chime that whenever you cast like a certain spell, you get to proliferate. But even those, like trying to do that like 5 times in a single turn and put that down on the same turn is like kind of a tall order. So I think it's just like, it's like the mental game of it. People are so afraid of like, well, I can't interact with this, therefore it's like the number one thing, even though they're probably going to lose way faster than the poison's going to kill them. That's literally what happened. Is like I would be playing poison. I wasn't even like, they weren't even like focusing me down because I was so slow at getting the poison counters on them. That like they were like,
"You're not doing it right."
If I gave you unblockable,
it's like
if I gave you unblockable
strike, and you die from 2 poison to 10, right?
But my deck isn't trying to like one-shot people at a time. I'm trying to kill everybody at once. So I'm running the stuff that gives everybody an poison counter, and then I proliferate them. So then they all die at the same time. I'm not like Skitherixing anybody or exoskeletoning. But yeah,
I think the problem is you have to kill the entire table by yourself, just like Mill. You got to do, if you want to win with it.
Yeah, you got to do it yourself. Nobody's helping you with poison, you know?
Yeah, and then the whole entire table tries to stop you from doing it. So
yes.
It's just such a weird mechanic. I don't know.
The funniest game was Tomer, you have like a 1 power commander or whatever, right? Was it Venser? I forgot who it was. But Tomer's like,
Venser.
I'm killing this guy with commander damage.
Rather than
poison. I'm like, what? Because he has toxic. He doesn't have infect. He has toxic.
That's how far my plane fell apart. Is like I had like the Spy Master's Vault, and I put like 15 counters on my Venser, and then I was just like, I just punched the guy to death with commander damage instead of poison. I gave him like 3 poison by the end, but it was like the Venser commander damage was my plan A.
I've not seen
that's
it for the entire event. I don't think I've ever seen somebody die to commander damage. Now that I think about it,
Ooh,
I don't know.
Ooh.
It's just
I played
I
against
died to commander
Alexios, and
damage.
everyone died to commander
Oh,
damage,
yeah, okay.
I got 21 to the dome out of nowhere. People are like, oh, do people keep you around because you're a content creator? And I'm like, it's 50-50, right? Some people are like, yeah, I want to play with you longer. Some people are like, he can't get away with it, and I'm going to ensure.
Yep.
I ate 21 Balin damage, commander damage to the face because I tapped out.
I always tell
damn.
people, when in doubt, hit me. You know, like when in doubt, hit me. Don't let me get away with it. Especially because I was feeling bad with my Melik deck was just doing better than I hoped. So I'm like, don't underestimate this deck. Even if I have nothing, just kill me.
All right.
Commander damage often.
Now we get to my favorite part. Oh wait, no, Phil. There's one more underperforming card, which I don't even believe.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
What's your underperforming card?
So I didn't really think of something, but I saw Crim's card here, and I kind of weirdly have to agree. It's Esper Sentinel. I don't want to say the card is bad, but in the games I've seen it played, I guess it drew a single card, which is still good, I guess, for one drop. It's not the menace. It's usually, I don't know. It's still a good card, but it did underperform for my limited experience. I play a lot of creature decks.
Mhm.
People paid for it. It is still a one drop though, but it is less scarier than pricey. I don't know. It's like the only thing
Underperformed for Esper Sentinel standards or underperformed?
for his standard. Like if it's just a 1-mana 1/1 draw one that's also an artifact and a human, it's already probably
If it's a one
good.
mana draw two, it's already above rate. Right?
that's already
It has
good.
to be like
Yeah.
a one mana draw
cards,
one.
I'm already like happy with it, right? But if it,
Yeah.
I think in our meta, it does draw more than 2 cards usually.
Yeah, because we have Seth.
Yeah.
Hey. I didn't see Esper Sentinel this weekend. I don't think I played against a single one of them. So I was more surprised that I just didn't see it more often. But I think maybe it's that like it doesn't really fit the theme of many decks. Like a lot of people are playing like I build around Lord of the Rings or Doctor Who or whatever, and it's just not like a thematic card. But yeah, so I didn't see it at all.
It's variance because I didn't see it at all, nor did I cast my own Esper Sentinel at all. But of the games, if I think you had a turn 1 Esper Sentinel, I think it would have done work, right? But
Yeah.
just due to variance, people didn't get it because there are a ton of Arabella decks. This was not include an Arabella, so we should have seen something. But just due to variance, we never actually saw Esper Sentinel get drawn and played. So I'm neutral on this. I didn't see it like say get played and die instantly and draw no cards. I just simply saw it not get played.
Yeah, I wonder what Crim had. So I stole it from Crim's list here because I thought, yeah, actually, it wasn't as good as usual. Maybe Crim had another experience. To me, it was just less bad as it usually is, I guess. It's still crazy.
All right. And now we're going to talk about secret tech cards. So we're going to go one card each. One card that we discovered during the con that like blew our minds. And like, why did I never know about this card? We're going to start playing it. We're going to start testing it out. And I had a lot of these moments during the con. But we're going to choose one. And the best part of the con, meeting fans, awesome. But you know what's better? Getting hot tech, right? So, and a lot of people have secret tech, right? They're like, yeah, have you seen this card? I'm like, no, I haven't, because we've had like 10,000 cards released last year, but this is fire. And my tech card is Remote Farm. Now, Remote Farm is from the brand new set Mercadian Masks. Okay, it's like 20 years old or something, 25 years old. It's a land. It comes into play tapped with 2 depletion counters on it. You can remove a depletion counter from it, add 2 white mana to your mana pool. If there are no depletion counters on it, sacrifice it. So it's an ETB soul land, so Ancient Tomb, except it makes double pips. So there's one for each color in the cycle, right? So there's a double green one, a double red one. And then after 2 uses, it goes away. Now, why is this good? Because I have so much catch-up ramp and I run out of people to catch up. Right, so this is a land that goes away after accelerating you for 2 turns that enables you to keep catching up. So we saw this played in the Armageddon game where they go Remote Farm, they power out a Keeper of the Cord or a Claim Jumper, their land goes away, but then they keep making land drops because of their catch-up ramp. If there's a Yavimaya or Urborg out, this is free, right? Because you can tap it to add the colored mana without removing the depletion counters. You can bring it back with Sun Titan or whatever to get a soul land on the battlefield. So I already bought my foil remote farm. It's coming. I am positive this is good. But I don't know. There could be scuffed games where you draw no catch-up ramp, you remote farm twice, and then you're out of mana, right? But the upside is so great because you basically go turn 1 remote farm, turn 2 you can play 3-drop, right? You can play and then turn 3 you can like claim jumper, surveyor scope, whatever, right? Like you have a lot of stuff to do. I'm convinced this is good, and I already got my copies. We're gonna get the other colors too. So the green one probably isn't needed, but the red one,
the green one is expensive.
No.
so the green one combos very well with landfall, but you don't need the catch-up ramp as much. If you have an Amulet of Vigor or Spelunking out, this is just a soul land, right?
I got the
you
blue and black one in my proliferate deck. Yeah, Venser runs
this
both
thing
the
is
blue
gas too. So when I saw this card, I was like, oh, this is it. We broke the meta again. We're gonna get this banned in Clash in a couple of weeks. It's
I'm a believer.
I'm a believer in remote farm because of the catch-up ramp.
Yes.
I don't know about jamming it in your blue decks or your red decks. Like that seems like
Surveyor
like
Scope.
a stretch.
Surveyor Scope.
But you have so few
one
catch-up
card.
ramps. What are the odds that you draw them in the same game? Yeah, like what you have a ton of catch-up ramps, so it makes a lot of sense. But I don't know about the other colors.
Urbor, Gavamaya.
Yes,
I'm
that's
actually
the
wondering.
cool.
I was talking to someone at the con and wondering when you're gonna start playing like Urborg and Yavimaya in your off-color decks. Like, are you to the point where you're just gonna run Urborg and mono white because you can to turn on stuff like this in Mazavith? Like,
Yes.
it might be worth it, right?
Yes.
There is a downside
Yes.
to these cards, though. They also mana fix your opponents. I feel like that's kind of overlooked.
Eh.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
get a soul land on
He
it.
plays
With no
Secret
downside.
Rendezvous.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a big believer for mono white. Sure, that's a very good point. I kind of want to try the Necrobloom, but the forest, like the green one in foil, is pretty expensive. Probably because of the
The
legacy
foils
deck
are
that
expensive,
plays
but
it.
the base
Yeah.
version is cheap.
Mm.
The base version is like
I
free.
gotta
They're also
get the
old
foil
order
though.
foils, too, so they always have a premium.
It looks so cool.
It's so good. It makes Sand Scout. It makes Sand Warriors from Sand Scout.
Mhm.
Oh, when it dies.
think
No,
it-
it
I
does
think
seem
it's
to
True,
be
yeah.
playing decks.
Man,
I think
it's
the
so
white one
cool,
is
yeah.
good in white catch-up ramp decks. It does
Yeah.
come into play tap. That's the only annoying thing, because
Yeah.
if you're running that plus Gilda's Commons plus the Arid Archway plus all these things that come into play tapped, they can be a little bit awkward, and they can force you to have some more mulligans than you otherwise would want. That's the only downside, though. I think otherwise is very,
Double
very
white.
good.
You know what's so sad, Tomer? When you have a single planes and then a Gilda's Comet and you have Secret Rendezvous in hand because it's double white.
Ooh.
Double white.
And then you're
picks,
like,
right?
damn,
This
I
gives
wish
you
it
double
wasn't
white.
like
This
Secret
can cast
Rendezvous.
Knight of the White Orchid, baby. It's not.
Mhm.
I guess you can also reset it with other bounce lands too. I don't know if it's great because then you got to play another tap land, but you can
Tap
like use a
land.
depletion counter, pick it up, put it back in. Yeah.
I run
I'm
them
gonna
in
have to try it.
Venser. I love them in Venser because you just proliferate them forever, so you don't actually lose them, which is great.
All right.
Fun.
Seth, hit us with the secret tech card.
Oh, so there's two that were really close, but I got to go with a card that I honestly did not know existed until someone played it against me. And then the next day, I got back to the hotel. I was like, Richard, did you know there's an enchantment that cuts a deal every single turn on your upkeep? So the card is Struggle for Project Purity. It's a 4-mana enchantment from the Fallout set. And it says, when it enters, you choose Brotherhood or Enclave. If you choose Enclave, it does something with rad counters. I don't think that actually matters. The big one is Brotherhood. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card, and you draw a card for each card drawn this way. So that is exactly cut a deal. A card that we play a lot of on Commander Clash, right? Each opponent draws one, you draw 3, and you get to do
Some of
this
us do.
every single upkeep. Every single upkeep.
Wait,
The
Tomer's
smart
not a
ones
cut a
of
deal
us.
believer yet?
No, I think it's awful. And you're not even cutting a deal. It's not even a flavor win. Because
I
there's
know,
no deal
right?
made.
It's a
You're-
weird
you're
That's
deal.
kinda
auto
weird.
accept.
There is
I don't
there
like
is no
it.
deal. That is true. But so this card, I love Phyrexian Arena effects, just enchantments that sit out and generate card
Oh.
advantage. And I feel like this has got to be one of the better ones. And then I guess the second mode, I guess you could argue, is kind of like a propaganda. If a player attacks you with creatures, they get twice that many rad counters, which I don't think is going to stop someone from attacking you, mostly putting on Brotherhood. But I'm very curious. So I saw this in a game and it popped off. It stayed out. The person drew 9 cards off of it, I think. They didn't end up winning the game because their deck was didn't have a win condition in it, I don't think. But they were generating a massive amount of card advantage. So I'm very curious. Can I just jam this in every deck like Phyrexian Arena? I think short term, I'm just going to jam this in every deck because I love Cut a Deal, and this just does it every single turn. Why would I not play this in every blue deck?
I mean,
Nice,
I'd love
good
you
for
to.
us.
Yeah, I'd
Yep.
love you to. Great. It's like
I
it's
don't
like
even think it's bad.
You don't
but
even read that
please
there's
do.
a downside, right? You're giving everybody else cards. It's like, okay, great.
But I'm-
do it.
But I'm
Do
getting
it,
all
please.
the cards.
Yeah, good, wonderful. So do it. I'm
I mean,
more than happy
3
to
cards
see
is
this.
crazy.
3 cards
Yeah.
is
So,
good. 3 cards is hot.
It is crazy. Imagine drawing 4 card each turn cycle.
Every turn.
It is like gotta have a reliquary tower, but still,
You do need
it
Reliquary
is
Tower.
pretty scary. Like at the same time, you're giving opponents the answers to kill you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Please play this. Do the
But they're not going
testing
to kill
for
you
us.
because they want you to draw more cards for them. So they get a little.
I'm happy with you sticking this on the table. Honestly, if you're my opponent and you do Cut a Deal, I'm like, yes, thank you, great, wonderful.
Richard, you're a believer. What do you think of this card? I know you're a Cut a Deal believer.
You brought this card to my attention. I've been thinking about it since then. I sweat at night thinking. My intuition is this card is bad. So Cut a Deal, I think, is one of the greatest cards of all time. But
Oh my
I think
God.
this card is bad because the first Cut a Deal is great. The second Cut a Deal, if you have no Reliquary Tower, this is actually extremely bad now, right? Because you're gonna discard a hand size, you're gonna draw 1, everyone else draws 1. That's terrible for you.
That's
Even if
bad.
you have a Reliquary Tower, you don't have the mana to deploy anything, right? So you're gonna build up a giant hand while your opponents are getting 1 card a turn, which they can probably actually use. So this is also very bad for you. And it's slow card draw. So the time you want to play this is on the early turns, but you can't deploy any of these cards. And late game, this is kind of scuffed, right? Because you need to wait for an untap cycle for you to draw your cards. So I think this card is bad, but I'm going to try it anyway because it sounds good. But I believe it's like Skullwinder. First Skullwinder, greatest card ever. Second Skullwinder, probably pretty good. If you're like making 6 Skullwinders, chances are people can kill you with this now, right? Like your choices have dwindled down, and now you can't really work it to be asymmetrical in your favor. So my guess is most of the time you play this, you discard to hand size. Your opponents are not discarding a hand size. It's really everyone draw 1, and that's like extremely bad. So that is my guess as to how this plays out. But yeah, I'm curious to try it because I didn't even know this thing existed.
You might be right. You might be right that Cut a Deal, if you do it too much, maybe it eventually flips and starts benefiting your opponent more than it benefits you. I was just so jealous because the person who played this had so many cards in hand the whole game, and it looked so sweet.
I have a
I've
great
seen it
card
once
for
and
you
I had
if
to
you want to
destroy
save
it.
mana on this, and you can put this in any deck. Okay, it's 2 mana colorless. It's called Howling Mine, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you draw an extra
that's
card.
not the same at all.
No.
Amazing.
Everyone
It's
draw
even-
one.
I'm
That's
drawing
the worst.
three cards.
That's
I'm
right.
drawing
One.
3.
It's so
I'm drawing
bad.
3 cards.
Oh, okay, it's fine.
I'm gonna
Okay.
try it.
Tomer, hit us with a
Yes.
card.
Okay, so I had 2 cards, but I'm gonna stick with my guns. The best secret tech was the one that I was playing. And you all I'm sorry.
Does this really
A little
count, Tomer?
Is this a little bit of ego? Is it a little bit of ego?
The smartest card
I-
I saw all weekend was the card I played.
I'm sorry, there wasn't that much secret tech. There was remote farm, which I was genuinely I'm very much on board with. I'm
We were in the same
100%
game as
sold.
the remote farm
Yeah.
game, and it did
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much work.
So-
yeah,
I was very impressed by that card in white catch-up ramp decks. And then that was basically it, I think. Okay, you know what? Fine. I won't do Isengard Unleashed.
no, do Isengard Unleashed. I think it's a
fine.
good card.
Isengard Unleashed. You should all be running it. That's why I think it's like a good PSA. It's a 5 mana red sorcery. Damage can't be read this turn. A source, if a source you control would deal damage this turn to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals triple that damage instead, and it has a flashback of 7 mana. So, you all like insult to injury. I got you on board with insult to injury. Well, there's a lot of glacial chasms out there. There's a lot of fogs out there. There's a lot of times where You just need to deal triple damage to somebody. I got you. Isengard Unleashed. 5 mana, triple damage on all your stuff. It's essentially a red overrun. But it's a red overrun that also comes with the extra clause of you can't get fogged. If somebody has a Glacial Chasm, don't care. I had somebody play the One Ring against me, and I immediately played Isengard Unleashed and just rolled them. It was wonderful. Teferi's Protection. If you know somebody's going to go Teferi's Protection, you send your commander at them. And if they have 7 more power, Isengard at least triple the damage. They die to the commander damage. Their life total can't change. It's true, but the commander damage just stick on them. So if you deal 21, they're dead. And I've done that on a commander clash with Inti. I remember I showed you this tech. So yeah, and then it has flashback too. So late game, if you're going very grindy, this is in the graveyard for whatever reason. Boom, you cast it from the graveyard and you kill people. It's wonderful. It overperformed this weekend.
Wait, what deck did you play it in? What was your commander?
Kaldra, Inti, and Melik.
So
I played in 3 decks.
Tomer, I gotta ask you, how many of the games where this went well involved a mana geyser? Because when I read this card, my first thought is just like, okay, this is powerful, but my god, 5 mana is so much for like a combat trick style effect or a damage can't be prevented effect. Is the mana cost an issue at all? Because I feel like the effect is good. I'm just a little skeptical that I want to pay 5 mana for it.
I think one game was a mana geyser, to be fair, but the other ones I just played 5 mana and then I swung and then he died. It was wonderful.
Okay.
So I ran into the problem with my Madsen Wanderer deck that I end up with everything on the board, but then it isn't lethal. So I am gonna try it out in my Madsen Wanderer. Cool that it stops like fogs, but the triple damage might be what I need. Also, it is kind of cool that so it is kind of cool that that's what I'm gonna say. It has 7 power. So triple that. So if
first of all, if they have a single blocker, your plan is moot. Okay. So.
Yeah, but if they T-Pro, they don't have a block.
Yeah, if they have,
that's true. That's true.
That is
I'm gonna
true.
T-Pro.
That's true.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Does
the Wanderer have trample?
Cool. Not without any help, but I do have help.
Okay.
It's also like I can cascade into it, which is I can also flash it back though, so it's not a full miss if I don't get any good attacks. I'm gonna try it out. It is Ring Hate, Glacial Chasm Hate. I kind of want to do the T-Pro jank him out thing though. That seems super cool if I can pull it off.
It's the biggest dopamine rush when you actually.
So Tomer brought this card to me because I play Aravella, but my conclusion is it's not good enough for Aravella, and there's 2 reasons for that. So one, it's 5 mana, which is a lot. But I play Insult to Injury and I play City on Fire. City on Fire is triple all damage. It's 8 mana, but it has Convoke, so I can play it for triple red usually, or even less. So I like that. My big concern with this is the flashback. Krim's not here, but the mill meta is very real. You do randomly get milled. And if you mill this thing into your graveyard, people are going to murder you outright. When they know you have a triple damage enabler sitting there, they'll try to kill you. And because of Mana Geyser, it can happen anytime. You could be on 4 lands, right? You can hit 5th land drop, Mana Geyser, Isengard, Unleash, flashback, kill everyone, right? So if it didn't have flashback, I think it'd be stronger. Because realistically, how often will you Isengard Unleashed and not win the game? Right?
That's so good.
And you need to flash it back.
Not the so good. It's bad take, Richard.
Oh my God.
It's an in graveyard trick that everyone can see, and they're gonna murder you if you're not set up to kill. Right? So I'd actually prefer it if it didn't have it. But I think City on Fire is the more efficient form of this. And it doesn't give evasion, right? So if people can block or something like that, that's a problem. But like Isengard Unleashed, Price of Progress, hilarious, right? If you're playing all basics. So I think this is a card on the radar, but specifically because I can Convoke, City on Fire, I think is better. But any red deck should consider this.
Not sold yet.
Not sold. You don't like damage triplers, Seth? That's like Panharmonicon before your damage.
Yeah, but isn't there just like a 6 mana enchantment that triples all your damage forever? Like, this is a 1-shot. It's for 1 turn, and they can chump block.
But you get fogged.
Feel like, honestly, Fire Emancipation, I'm going to give a hot take here. it's a win more card. It's actually not very good.
Wait,
Because
what?
how
But
much
this
is
isn't?
how many
They're basically
turns
the
do you
same.
actually how many turns do you actually need to have triple damage on the board? Usually you drop that on the battlefield and you win the game. It's like, oh, I could
Yes.
play Overrun, or I can play a more expensive enchantment that overruns each turn. It's like, well, I only need to overrun once because when I cast Overrun, I kill everybody. So I don't actually
But
think
this
Emancipation
doesn't give
that good.
trample though, right? Like,
No, but
isn't
neither does
isn't
Fire
there a risk that you
Emancipation.
triple damage and you just get jump blocked and like it doesn't actually do anything?
Yeah, but neither does Fire Emancipation, and they're both just damage triple.
But it'll be around the next turn once their creatures are dead for me to attack them again,
no
but
one
they don't have
untapped.
blockers.
And
with a
flash it
triple
back.
damage enchantment.
I don't- I don't
win the
think you're
game
allowed
or
to
you
have
lose
that.
right after, right? I don't.
Yeah,
Tomer's right in
okay.
that you're not going to untap. The exception would be the flash one, because you can end of turn flash it in to have more mana on your killing turn. But I think that's only double damage. But usually it's like you don't overrun and then like assume you need another turn to win the game, right? Like usually that ends the game, or they're gonna untap and like kill you somehow, right? So I
You
agree
can
that the
also-
enchantment versus sorcery doesn't matter.
You can also cast it and then flash it back if you have hella mana, which I will have.
Oh
with
yeah, you
them.
can
Right
build
there.
triple,
Medicine Wanderer.
and then you
Times
price
900
the
damage.
and then you price the progress on top. You'll deal 9 times damage. What the?
Hmm.
Oh, that'd be
That's
so
unironically
funny.
probably a line here, right? Like you have one like 3/3 creature or something, right? But you have a mana geyser and you can 9x damage and hit someone with it. Like that's probably happens like a
kinda
non-zero
hilarious.
amount of time.
That's very
Phil, hit us with
Yeah,
a
I got
card.
one more. So somebody showed me a card that I'm kind of shocked that I didn't know about it, and it's Quantum Misalignment. It is 5 mana. It creates a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it isn't legendary, so you can copy your commander, and then it has a rebound. So in the next upkeep, you can cast it again. It is similar to Irenicus Vile Duplication, which is also a commander doubler. It might be niche. It seems completely insane in Manu's Kalga. So when I create a
Ooh.
token copy of it, they see each other and they draw cards, and then you create a third copy, and then you draw. How many?
Oh,
Wait, are you
it's
just
gonna
legend
be
ruling
insane.
yourself to
I-
draw cards?
No,
No, it's not
except it
legendary.
isn't legendary.
Oh,
I
it doesn't.
copies your
Oh,
commander.
I see.
So-
I thought you couldn't target legendary, but this is it makes a
And then you can
non-legendary
start
copy.
copying that one. In
Yeah,
Martin's
yeah,
Calculator, you can
yeah,
start
yeah.
Oh,
copying
yeah,
that
like
one
in
too,
Garuda
like
or
Caretaker's
something.
Talent or whatever.
So obviously it's crazy in Manu's Kalga, but is it also good in stuff like Omnath and other expensive commanders? Probably. I usually don't do this, but with the rebound, it is a little win more. Like once you have your commander, you're usually in good shape. But
You
nobody
have 2
gonna
commanders.
complain
You
about
still
a little
can't
more
win.
winning.
On your next upkeep, you have a third one. And surely you can close it
Yeah,
down.
and surely that does it, right?
Are you playing a Ton Soldier or whatever that card is? It's like this was another card. I can't remember if I learned about it from you or someone else, but it's a Doctor Who card and it's like a 6 mana clone.
Oh, that was.
but it has Myriad and it can can copy legends. Isn't that absurd?
Rakdos or something? I thought about.
No,
it
it's just
before,
mono
like-
blue. It's just a 6 mana
it's-
mono blue clone.
But you got to attack or something with it to get Myriad.
Yeah, that's
right?
Myriad.
That's
Yeah,
slow.
attacking
so it,
is not
it
really up
clones
my
something
alley.
for sure.
Oh,
But then
it gets
imagine
the
all the
clone?
token.
Oh,
So it's a clone that copies something,
But
but
it's
then
not a
if you
token.
attack with
If
it,
you
it has
untap with it,
Myriad.
you're getting 3 more.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that in,
Interesting.
in Calgar though? If you attack with it and get
They-
token copies for
So
each
the-
of them,
So I
Draw your
usually
whole deck
don't
and die
like
there.
like
So
Spark
much
Double or
more.
something, because it is
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, if you have your commander, your deck should already function. It's especially cool in Manu's Kalga that these are tokens and they immediately draw you 2 cards when they hit, and then
yeah.
it
You see
gets
why I'm
crazy
on
once
the
you have
Swords
the-
of Plowshares train.
Yeah,
Against-
please don't sort my
against Phil.
Kalga in response.
One
I am
mana,
way in the
one mana, one
domination.
card. All of this goes bye-bye.
Yeah,
Don't
true,
have to
good
deal
point.
with this
Please don't do it.
nightmare. The nightmare is
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I just want to try this card.
Interesting.
I
His
mean,
Cackling
Manu's Kalga
counterpart
is gonna get.
is the general like copy your own creature, but it doesn't make it non-legendary. So 3 mana
Yeah.
copy your
Yep.
own creature is the going rate. This is 5. You're gonna get 2, and it can enable shenanigans of making your commander not legendary.
At 4
I still
mana
think
is
it's win
going
more,
rate to
though.
copy.
It's so win more. I think if
legendaries.
you get your commander,
It is win
you're
more.
good to go. Did you really need to make a second commander and draw cards?
Ah.
Yes.
But we're trying to win more, Richard. It's not about winning. It's about winning
It's not
more.
about winning. It's about winning more until you lose. Because you spent too much time
That's
winning.
usually how it turns out.
Exactly.
Yep.
I like it. All right. Those are the hot tech cards we saw from the largest Commander convention. Any closing words? Anything else we got on the way out here?
Magic is the coolest game ever. Every time I'm in Vegas or every time I play it, it's just so much fun. It gets better and better.
Bring rats.
I
when you
agree with
play
that.
Bill.
It was super fun. It was really nice meeting everybody. I had really good games with everybody. I think there was only one game that was a little bit awkward, that somebody was getting like very salty. But for the most part, I played like 18 games, and everybody was just like super happy to be there, super happy to hang out. The game was mostly just like a vehicle to show off cool cards and talk and chat, and it was fun. Like, yeah, it was really good.
I guess my final PSA would be, don't be afraid to come up to us at a MagicCon and say hi, because that was the only other thing I thought of this week. Some people were like super nervous or like hanging out for an hour waiting for me to like finish a game. Just come up and say hello if you want to. So if you run into us at a future MagicCon, I guess if it's like in the middle of a combo or a turn, maybe avoid it. But otherwise, like, feel free, come up, say hi. We're all super nice about it.
Yeah, don't wait until we're done the game. It was crazy. Somebody was doing, two people
I
were
feel
doing
bad
that,
for
waiting
you.
for Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were waiting like 20 minutes until I saw them waiting still, and I was like, "You want a signature from Richard?" And they're like, "Yeah, but we're waiting until his game's over." And I'm like, "No, just he's not. It's not his turn. Just wait until it's not his turn and go." And he's like, "Oh, it's not his turn now. Go." And I just like pushed them to Richard, and that was it.
Yeah, just
There's
ask,
some
and
people
if we're in the
very
middle of a
polite.
turn, we'll be like, "Can you wait 2 minutes?" And then we'll
Yeah,
do
wait
it
a minute,
after,
we
right?
got
But
you.
usually outside of our turns, you know, we're not doing it. If you wait for the game, Dan, oh boy,
Yeah.
Might
be
After
3
the fourth
hours.
audio
Like 3
version.
Farewell.
All right, so that wraps up MagicCon Vegas. Super exciting. Our fans are catching up. We got trailblaze
Scary.
the meta ahead of them.
We got to
you
up
know,
our
this-
game.
I made sure nobody that played a Glacial Chasm won the game because I can't have that be the normal meta. I can't have. I was like, oh my god, this is so toxic. What are you guys doing?
Guard Unleashed gets around it very easy. Same.
Glacial Chasm with Fierce Guardianship. That's the meta. But yeah, it was pretty cool to see everyone's secret tech. I love all the secret tech. Please feel free to keep showing us new cards. There's so many cards in Magic that my secret tech card list is like 10 cards. I learned so many new cards. I'm going to show them off on Clash. I'll hopefully shout out when I see it. But we're going to evolve the meta because from our fans, we learned so many new cards. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. And as always, feel free to say hi when you see us. So at future events, come say hi, get your stuff signed. I signed so many Swords to Plowshares. I don't know if they were fans or just trolling me because you can't be my fan and then actually play Swords to Plowshares, can you? That's disgusting.
I signed like 10 Ristic studies. 10.
I signed
yeah.
Glacial Chasm, then proceeded to kill that person immediately when they played Glacial Chasm. It was great. So yeah, it was a fun event. And leave your secret tech. I'm curious if you attended the con and you saw secret tech or you saw a different meta than us. Feel free to leave a comment. And then we'll see you all back here next week.